babies. This is a turd day. Travis Etienne is hurt, and there's a lot of sad people in Dynasty. There's a lot of sad people in redraft, but not as sad. I guarantee if you drafted him in redraft, you probably didn't pick him that high. So it's definitely a bummer. You had some high hopes. You were hoping that you were going to get him a little later, and he was going to be a steal, but it's not looking like that's going to work out. He's got the Liz Frank injury. Yeah, if you're in Dynasty, you have to hold on to him, obviously. If you do not have him in Dynasty, then you should be trying to trade for him right now because whoever has him is probably they were probably already thin at running back. Now they're even thinner, and, you might be able to do, I don't know, who could you offer for Travis Etienne right now and probably get away with it? You might even want to wait till the season starts and just see how a few people pop. You might even be able to get away with, I don't know, if Gus Edwards gets 2 touchdowns week 1, you might be able to do something like that, because whoever was relying on James Robinson in Dynasty or Travis Etienne is going to be in a tough spot. But little slip there, James Robinson. Let's get to that. I mean, it just sucks. He's out for the year. It is what it is. Here's the thing, though. It's weird how this all works out because, I would never root for something like this to happen to a young dude. They work hard. It sucks. It's real life. But from a fantasy perspective, I was always super frustrated that the Jaguars picked up Etienne in the first place. The news came out that they wanted Kadarius Toney, and then they picked up Etienne. And then it seemed like they were just going to play him in a role that they kind of had in mind for Kadarius Toney, which is weird because it's they also have Laviska Shenault. So the whole thing, since the moment he got drafted by the Jaguars, it was just a frustrating situation from a fantasy perspective, considering how awesome James Robinson is. And holy crap, if you have James Robinson, you know how it is. Look, nobody wants young dudes to get hurt. Nobody's rooting for that. However, if you have James Robinson, you are so fucking fired up right now, and you're not bragging about it, and you're not being loud about it because that would be low class. That would be distasteful, and I'm not happy about it. Nobody's really happy about it unless you have James Robinson, and then you're extremely happy about today's news. It's selfish, but it is the way the game is played. I'm excited for him as a player, man. He was incredible last year by every metric. And now he looks like he's going to be the bell cow again, and there's no real controversy. Let's look at some of the ADP action cooking right now. So this is about the range. This Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, Carson Montgomery, that range. That's where I'd be picking old J-Rob at this point. Double dip. Infinite mirror. Yeah, I mean, obviously we got Antonio Gibson there, Joe Mixon. I might even take him over Joe Mixon. Well, I don't really like Joe Mixon this year in general, but maybe right after Clyde, right there at overall number 22. So you can still get him at the back end of the second round. I do think he's going to go skyrocketing up draft boards, so you're probably not going to be able to get him in the late third, I'm guessing. He's probably going to be a second rounder. Hopefully he doesn't go up too high right now. Maybe give it a week right before the season. It's going to balance out a little bit. But, that David Montgomery range, J.K. Dobbins, I don't know, man. A lot of people, J.K. Dobbins is an exciting prospect, but he has done less to date than James Robinson. The only real difference is draft pedigree, and you could maybe argue team quality. But he looks like he's going to be in a timeshare. Some people are arguing that Carlos Hyde is going to be in a timeshare with James Robinson. I don't really see that. I mean, I guess it's possible. But James Robinson excelled in every facet of the game last year. I think it's his backfield to lose now. And he looked incredible last year on what should have been a worse team. This should be a better team. So all aboard the James Robinson train. This is exciting for that player. For if you're in Dynasty and redraft, if you're in Dynasty, man, that's an incredible stroke of luck. But yeah, I would be tempted to take James Robinson over Clyde at this point. I would take him over Chris Carson. I would take him over Joe Mixon. That's just me. Not a big fan of Mixon. I think he's already proved that one way or another, he just makes you sad. And James Robinson, maybe this is kind of like, you either go from your gut or you go from the logic. And I think for me, James Robinson is like he was on my fantasy team last year. And he was awesome. Joe Mixon's, I've had him twice. He's just been a disappointment through injury he's talented, but I would rather have James for sure. And I'd rather have him more than almost everybody in that range. Maybe David Montgomery would be a guy that I'd be tempted to take over him, but I might be grabbing him right after like the Antonio Gibsons of the world. Right when you start getting into guys that you're not even sure what their committee situation is going to be, I'd be taking James Robinson right there. So Mixon and James Robinson, that's kind of the toss-up because those are both going to be bell cow guys, whereas everybody else past that range, you got, Carson, DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, all those dudes. They're all timeshare guys. I think James Robinson is not. And God bless him, man. But Travis Etienne, that's a bummer. And try to trade for him, though, if you can in Dynasty, because I do think that he's going to get a shot next year to come back. He's a first-rounder. I will make a call, though. Maybe come back in, 2023 and see if this is the right call. I think Urban Meyer is not going to be a good head coach in the NFL. I'm not trying to dog. I'm not trying to be negative. I just think that that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to bomb out. And so it's kind of interesting to wonder. It's like I don't like the way that they were going to use Travis Etienne. And it's very possible that this is just – because this happens, man. When a young running back especially, even highly drafted running backs get hurt early in their career, sometimes that very often does not work out for that player, especially when it's a major injury. I'm trying to think of a few guys that happened to, that they kind of just disappeared a little bit. Like Deontay Foreman he was a second rounder, right? When they get hurt, yeah. Darius Geis was like that. He obviously had other issues, but trade for him in Dynasty. Don't give up too much. This actually might be a bad time to trade because the person that just lost him is probably like, but wait until week 4 or 5 and get him for pennies. He's worth a shot. Although if I must say, if I'm going to say what I'm going to say, I'm not so sure about Travis Etienne, period, long-term, because I don't think Urban Meyer is going to be there long-term. I think the Jags might go through a whole rigmarole of a new regime once every, within the next 2 or 3 years, and then it's a whole overhaul, and then Etienne wasn't their guy in the first place, and then he gets moved on to another team, and then he's in a timeshare potentially or a backup. Rashad Penny would be another guy, kind of a late first-round draft pick that was also a little just like, why'd you do that? You didn't even need that? And look how that turned out. He could end up having an okay year this year, but I think when even a first-rounder, even a talented first-rounder, and by the way, I like Najee and Javonte Williams better than Travis Etienne going into the draft. He's good. He's got great long speed. I mean, he's fine. In the right situation, he'd be a solid running back, but I don't believe there's anything overly spectacular about him as a player to the point where anywhere he goes, it's like Saquon's a guy you want to continue to believe in. He's so talented. And it doesn't matter what team he ends up on. As long as he can stay healthy, you want to keep giving that guy a chance because he's such a beast. He's such a monster. I don't think Etienne's on that level. So I think that situation – I hate saying this because I hate predicting something so negative about a young guy. I hope he has a great career. But if I'm looking at stocks and trades, that type of mindset about it, I mean, wait until week 3 or 4 when the person has gotten over the sadness of the loss of Etienne. And then try to get him for pennies because it's possible, but – if you have them, I would try to sell them now. If you have them, I would try to sell them. I would sell them if you have them and try to get anything, because I think that anything is going to be better than what you get even long-term out of them. And then I'm also suggesting to get them, but just get them for cheap. So depending on how you want to play that, negotiate. If you're trying to go get him, negotiate. Hey, it's going to be a year. try to get him for cheap. If you have him, try to be like, hey, it's Etienne. He's still worth a lot. He'll be a beast for you next year. I'm leaning that he's not going to be. So if under any scenario, I'd be trying to get rid of him if I had him, and I wouldn't be buying. But James Robinson all the way, 2022. What is it, 2021? It's going to be an exciting year for that kid, man. I think he's definitely worthy of a third-round pick this year. I might even reach for, like, if you go receiver in the first round and you need your second guy and you're at that pool of David Montgomery, Chris Carson, James Robinson, if you do those two, like two of those guys at the turn on the back end, I think that he could be an excellent third running back on your roster as a bell cow in the Jaguars offense. See you next time. Hey, thank you for watching Fantasy Turds podcast. Go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts, whichever one you use. And if you could subscribe there, that would be awesome. We are kind of new to the fantasy football content community. We're just excited to be talking about it. But we're going to be putting out a lot more content right here on the channel. So if you did enjoy the video, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that. We're going to be putting out a lot more videos. Me and the co-host, Brett, we're both, I'm a stand-up comedian. We're both also business owners. I own this studio that I'm sitting in right now. And so, but we've set aside a bunch of time to be able to put out more consistent content. So more coming. If you enjoyed, subscribe, go hit up all the podcast outlets, and thank you for supporting the show, and we'll see you next time.